Feeling stuck? Yearning for more? You're in the right place. This is Midlife Moxie with Nicole, where you're going to get a weekly dose of courage, clarity, and maybe a little bit of chaos as we navigate our best chapter yet, midlife. Welcome back to Midlife Moxie with Nicole. I'm your host, Nicole. What if I told you that every should you've been carrying is actually a cage? I spent 25 plus years building a career in nursing and then switching to a corporate environment, all because I was told it was safe for women until I realized safe for women actually meant safe for everyone except the woman living it. Over the past few episodes of this podcast, we've talked about courage and perfectionism, the inner critic, and resilience. And if you haven't listened to those episodes, I suggest you do so either now or after this episode, because this episode actually does build on those topics. Because what I didn't tell you in any of those episodes, they are all the symptoms of the same disease. But today we're going to go after the root, the shoulds. The shoulds created it all. And this isn't just about planning the second half of your life in midlife. It's about recognizing that every moment you spend living authentically gives another woman permission to choose herself too. You set the example. Are you ready for a revolution? Because I consider what we're doing as a start of that. So let's talk about the invisible cages that are the shoulds. Dreaming beyond the shoulds is a radical act of visioning from your authentic desires rather than from society's script of who you should be at this age and stage of life. Let me name some of the most common cages that I see clients trapped in. Some of these might be familiar to you. There is the age-appropriate cage, the thoughts of being content with what you have, or being too old to try something new, or even being too old to dress or look a certain way. There is caretaker conditioning, putting your family's needs first above yours, even when your children are grown, or sacrificing your own dreams so that others can pursue their. And I'm pretty sure you have heard that one if you're a mom or if you have stepkids, right? There is the financial realistic trap, being practical about money at this age, or choosing security over passion. There's the modest woman conditioning, telling yourself that you shouldn't want to be recognized for something that you've done, or telling yourself that you shouldn't take up too much space. What I want you to understand is that each of these shoulds contain its own sacred rage and anger about time lost to other people's expectations, all while your authentic self, passions, dreams were buried under layers of compliance and your life force being dimmed to avoid being too much. I had my own prison break, which I have talked about here and on social media, but let me share the journey in case you don't know just a brief snippet of my story. Because yes, I am someone who talks about empowerment for women in midlife, but I've also been on the other side of living decades of other people's dreams. This started by going to nursing school because I was raised to believe that it was a safe career, it was good for women, and it was stable. And I believed it until I was immersed in a system that was broken, a system that prioritized money over human connection. While I tried to be an advocate for patients who needed to be heard and seen and validated, and they didn't want to just be medicated. And then I switched to the corporate world that was ruled by men who dismissed the experience that I had. And when I spoke up, I was labeled a troublemaker. I was a bitch. I was bossy. All the terms that good girls compliantly don't get called. That was my wake-up call to see that the system was designed to break women like me. So what did I do? I left it all behind. 25 plus years of building my legacy and what I had only known to make a living. But I found myself at a crossroads where I just couldn't do it anymore. It was breaking me. So I took a leap of faith and I bet on myself. And this is what breaking free from the shoulds looks like. It's messy, it's scary, and sometimes it requires disappointing people that are invested in your compliance. But what I discovered is the life breaking me wasn't actually my life. It was a series of performances of what everyone else thought my life should look like. So let's talk about early life versus midlife and the visions to have the shift. I see early life visioning as being contaminated by other people's dreams that are just wearing your face. You're visioning life through conditioning and seeking approval and following scripts and orders. And I see midlife visioning is finally that stage where you have enough anger and rage that is sacred and it's burning inside of you. And this could be from wasted time and knowing what you want your future to look like. It's soul-led. I see sacred rage and anger as fuel. At this age, midlife, you're finally angry about the wasted time, and you don't want to stop wasting more of it. You also have what I consider to be conditioning clarity. You're old enough, you're wise enough, you have enough wisdom and years of experience that you can see through the shoulds that once felt like the truth. There's mortality awareness. Someday is now or never. And yes, you do have less fucks to give. You have a decreased need for validation and an increasing willingness to be difficult. So this isn't a midlife crisis. It's a midlife awakening. The crisis was spending the first half living everyone else's dream. And the awakening is realizing that you still have time to live your own. So how do you excavate your authentic desires from the decades of conditioning? Here are a few exercises that you can try. First, the sacred selfishness experiment. Choose one small selfish action per week and notice the resistance that you feel in your body. Feeling that resistance and doing the selfish act will eventually push you out of the discomfort because this means you are breaking free from the conditioning. Or consider the conditioning fury practice. List what makes you angry, mad, or even furious about your life as it is today. Each point reveals where your authentic self was suppressed. The anger, the rage is a treasure map to your own inner authentic desires. Or you can try the should burning ritual. Writing down each should on a piece of paper and asking yourself, whose voice is this? Burn the ones that belong to other people's voices and keep only the ones that make you feel expansive. The body can be our greatest truth detector. Notice how your body feels when you're pushing yourself to do something that might be selfish or that you might get angry or even furious about. Feel the constriction or feel the expansion. When you truly are being real and authentic with yourself and your desires, do you notice expansion? Do you feel constricted maybe when it's someone else's desire for you? Your nervous system in the body knows everything and knows the difference between these. Let's talk about the inner critic, because we have mentioned that inner critic before in past episodes, because the inner critic isn't protecting you from failure. It was protecting everyone else from your success. And perfectionism, it wasn't about standards. It was about performing worthiness for people who should have seen it automatically. The courage that you thought you were building, you already had it, but you were using it in places that were killing your soul instead of using it to leave. These shoulds are the programming codes that create perfectionism, that feed and nourish the inner critic, that ends up requiring false courage. Every struggle that you thought was personal was actually political. There's a system that needed you to believe that your exhaustion was a character flaw, not evidence that you were living the wrong life. When you vision authentically in midlife, you're becoming a dangerous example that the good girl system can actually be exited. You're proving that compliance is optional and choosing yourself is necessary for soul survival. The question isn't, what do I want for the second half of my life? It's, what kind of world do I want to leave for women coming behind me? And think about that. What example are you setting? You're the role model. When you have a vision that is authentic, other women can see your authenticity. And then they question their own compliance. Every exit from the system makes the next exit easier. And you become living proof that women can choose themselves and still thrive. Your authentic second half is becoming the woman you needed when you were learning to be small. Every choice either serves that woman or betrays her. So here is your sacred act of rebellion for this week. Do the should inventory. Write down the shoulds that guide your decisions and ask each, whose voice is this? What if I ignored this completely? And next, jump into the time machine. Take yourself back to when you were maybe 6 or 7. What did you love to do before the world told you who you are to be? This exercise looks like going into a very quiet place, closing your eyes and just being with your thoughts and letting them roam. Take as long as you like, but when you come out of that, write all of the discoveries down. Choose one sacred, selfish act this week, something that serves your desires that might end up disappointing someone else's expectations. And celebrate the resistance. And ask yourself this revolutionary question. If living authentically would give other women permission to do the same, what would I be choosing differently? Be the example. Be the leader. People are watching and they are looking up to us in this age. Your individual healing, although I don't always like to say that word, but Overcoming your obstacles and being true and authentic to yourself becomes a cultural phenomenon when every should that you reject makes it easier for the next woman to reject hers too. You are not here to live small, safe, or even acceptable. You are here to be a dangerous example of what's possible when a woman finally chooses herself. I can tell you from personal experience, after walking away from my career, 25 plus years in the making, it wasn't about losing my legacy. It was finally honoring it. The real legacy isn't what you built in compliance to others' dreams. It's who you choose to become when you bet on the woman you've always been underneath all of the conditioning. The most revolutionary thing that you can do is find your vision authentically. Dream dangerously and choose yourself without apology. Because every time you do, you give other women the permission to do the same. Remember, your voice matters. Your dreams are valid. And you are exactly on time for the revolution that your soul has been preparing for. This is Nicole. Choose your revolution. Choose authenticity. Choose yourself. Because the world needs the woman you're becoming when you finally stop performing and start living. I'll see you next week on Midlife Moxie with Nicole Haight. Before you go, I want to make sure that you know how to stay connected to this work, because what we have talked about today, this is just the beginning. If you're sitting there thinking, holy shit, she just described my entire life, and you want to know exactly what patterns are running the show in your life, I've created something specifically for you. You can head on over to my website, www.nicolehaight.com, and take the assessment, which sacred pattern is running your midlife. It's a free diagnostic tool that will tell you exactly where you are in your own conditioning and what your next steps should be. There's no fluff, no generic advice, just precise information about your specific patterns. Because here's the thing, you can't interrupt what you can't see. And most women are trying to change their lives without understanding the deeper nervous system conditioning that is actually driving their choices. If you want to dive deeper into these conversations and connect with other women who are also done performing their way through life, you can join my private Facebook group. Link will be in the show notes. And it's where we have conversations, real, raw, unfiltered truth about women in midlife. And if you want to be on my VIP list for weekly doses of truth that maybe help keep you accountable to your own transformation, there is a link in the show notes, but there's also a link at my website, www.nicolehaight.com, where you can sign up to be on my email list. This isn't a typical newsletter filled with tips and inspiration, though I do include that from time to time. This is a newsletter where I share hard truths, insights, raw, unfiltered things that are just not socially acceptable on social media. And these awarenesses that you can take away from what I share can be a catalyst for change. So I invite you to sign up. And if you're ready to go even deeper, because you might be tired of all of this surface level work and you really want a whole system level transformation, everything you need to know about working with me is on my website, www.nicolehaight.com. I'm not a coach, and this isn't coaching, and it's not therapy, and it's sure as hell not spiritual bypassing. This is a resurrection of the nervous system. And this is for the woman who is ready to stop performing and start living. You can also follow me on Instagram, Threads, and YouTube at I am Nicole Haight, where I share reminders about conditioning and women and midlife, confronting truths and desires that are just frankly not up for negotiation. So next week we will continue to have discussions that likely will make some of you squirm. It is what I'm best at. But if this episode shifted something for you, do me a favor and leave a review. Not because I need an ego boost, but because there are women out there who are Googling, why do I feel invisible in my own life at 2 a.m.? And your review might be what helps them find this podcast. Your review could also be the breadcrumb that leads another woman out of performance prison and into her own resurrection. So until next week, remember, you don't need permission to want what you want. You never did. That was just conditioning dressed up as consideration. You're a woman in midlife. You don't need permission. You just need to have desires and wants and the ability to go after all of them. So stop asking and start claiming.